Hi ladies and gentlemen, we're back for the second section of 1.3. So this is 1.3b, geometric sequences. Remember our essential question is how do I write recursive and explicit formulas for a geometric sequence? So in the first video we basically just reviewed what a geometric sequence is and what it looks like when we graph it. Now we're going to talk about the recursive and explicit equation. So the recursive equation says this. It says almost the exact same thing as the arithmetic one does. It says, how do I get the next term equals the previous term times the common ratio. And then I need to have my starting point, because a recursive equation does not work without a starting point. Okay, so how do I say that? So I said that in words, right? I wrote that out in words. Now, what does it look like mathematically in equation form? Well, next term is f of n. Okay, my previous term is f of n minus 1. And then I'm going to multiply by my common ratio. And then I say f of 1, whatever my first term is, equals whatever the first term in my sequence is, okay? Now, another way, you can actually write this another way, and I kind of want to put that in here for you so you know the difference. So I can also say my next term equals my common ratio times f of n minus 1. Sometimes they put the common ratio in front of the f of n minus 1. So just kind of be on the lookout for that. If you see it written that way, that just means it's geometric. So I wanted to kind of put that out there for you guys so you could see it both ways. Doesn't matter to me which way you do it, because both is right. So for my explicit equation, we have f of n, or y, whichever you want to put, f of n equals a times b to the x power. Now we need to find what a and b is. We know what x is. X is x. That's our variable. That's what we need to, that's what we're trying to find, right? Which term is that? That's my term number. So what does a? Well, a is my 0th term. So remember in my arithmetic sequence, it was mx plus b. B was my 0 term in my arithmetic. Well, in this time it's a. A is my 0th term. And in a geometric, b is my common ratio. Okay? So we're just going to follow that, and we're going to do what it says. We're going to do this. So it says write a recursive and explicit equation for the sequence, then find a sub n. A sub 7. So it wants me to find the 7th term in our sequence. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. So first thing we need to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is find my common ratio, or determine if it's a geometric sequence actually. So how do I get from this 1 to -5, -5 to 25, 25 to -1, 25, -1, 25 to 6, 25? Well, I already know. How do I get from -1 to positive 25? Well, I'm going to multiply -5 by -5. If I multiply 1 by -5, do I get -5? Well, yep, I do. And then I can test it again. If I multiply positive 25 by -5, do I get -125? And you know you can use your calculator, and I do. So it's perfect. So my common ratio is -5. Okay, so I need that for all my equations that I'm going to do. So my explicit equation, oh, not explicit. We're not starting with explicit. Sorry. We're starting with recursive. So to get my next term, I take my previous term and I multiply it by -5. Okay? I can put my little star in there if you need it. Okay, so I'm multiplying by -5. And then I say f of 1. What's my first term? Well, if we go back to my sequence, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. My first term equals 1. Okay? That's it. So now we're going to go to my explicit this time. My explicit equation says f of n equals my 0th term. So now I need to find out what my 0th term is. What do I multiply by -5 to get 1? So what number do I multiply by -5 to get 1? So I kind of say it this way. That's kind of a mathematical term to me. It says what number, so that's a variable, so I'm going to say y. What number do I multiply by -5 to get +1? Well, I can solve that, right? I'm going to divide by -5, and y equals -1/5. So my 0th term is -1/5. And then it's times b, which is my common ratio, -5 to the x power. And that's it. That's all there is to that. Okay? And then the last thing I need to do is find f of, I'm going to come over here and write that, f of 7. So I'm going to put that into my calculator, into my formula. So I have -1/5 times -5 to the 7th power. I'm going to just put that into my calculator. I would do -5 to the 7th power and then divide by -5. That's the easiest way because that's what a fraction is. Equals 1,515,625. Okay, good job, you guys. So now we're going to move on to this next equation or next sequence. Ooh, let me move up my board here. And we're going to do the same thing. We need to find the common ratio. So what do I do to get from 9 to 18, 18 to 36, 36 to 72? Well, 9 to 18, I'm multiplying by 2, and then 2 times 8, and you can take your calculator and figure this out. Is 18 times 2 36? Well, yes, it is. And is 36 times 2 72? Yes, it is. Or what's the other thing I can... What's the other thing I can do to figure it out? Well, I can take 18 and I can divide by 9. And I can take 36 and divide by 18. And I can take 72 and I can divide by 36. And it all equals 2. So I'm multiplying by 2. Okay? So the first thing I need to write is my recursive equation. So that's f of n equals f of n minus 1 times 2. And then my starting point, f of 1, right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. F of 1 equals 9. Beautiful. And then we're going to do the explicit equation. Explicit. Great. So in order to do the explicit equation, what I need to do is I need to find my 0th term. So what am I doing? I'm saying, what do I multiply 9 by to... What do I multiply 2 by to get 9? So sorry. What do I multiply? What number do I multiply by 2 to get 9? Well, divide by 2. Divide by 2, y equals 9/2. So my 0th term is 9 divided by 2. Boy, that's really ugly, 9. So sorry. 9 divided by 2. So I've got 9/2 times 2 to the x power. And I want to make sure, I'm going to write this out. Make sure you don't write it as 9/2 times 2 to the x power, because that x is supposed to be an exponent, which makes it geometric, okay? It's an exponent. Great. And then we've got we want to find f of 7. So I'm going to say 9/2 times 2 to the 7th power. And then in my calculator, I would do, this is how I would do it. This is how I would do it. Let me slide it over here. In my calculator, I go 2 to the 7th power times 9 divided by 2, because that's what 9/2 is. I'm going to times by the top and divide by the bottom. So 2 to the 7th power times 9 divided by 2, and that's how you would put it into the calculator. And my answer is going to be 576. Okay, one more problem, and then you guys are going to work on some problems and do a short quiz, and then you're going to be done with this. You guys are doing great. Okay, so what am I going to do to get from 27 to 9, 9 to 3, 3 to 1, 1 to 1/3? Woo. Okay, so how do I do it? I do 9 divided by 27. So 9 divided by 27, or 3 divided by 9. Okay, so if I put that in my calculator, I'm going to get like 0.3333333, right? It goes on and on and on. Well, what is that as a fraction? Well, it's 1/3. So I'm going to times by 1/3, or I'm dividing by 3, right? I can see 27 divided by 3 is 9. So that's the same. If I'm dividing by 3, that's the same as multiplying by 1/3. Okay, so my common ratio is 1/3. And then I want to find my recursive. Let's see, recursive. So f of n equals 1/3 times f of n minus 1. I just thought I'd write it the other way. And f of 1, what's my first term? 27. Awesome. So that's my first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Okay. And then we want our explicit equation is going to be f of n equals, what's my 0th term? So what do I multiply 1/3 by to get 27? So what do I multiply 1/3 by to get 27? Well, how do I do this? How do I get rid of fraction? You multiply by the denominator. So y is going to equal 81. 81 is my 0th term. So 81 times 1/3 to the x power. Beautiful. And then the last thing I need to find is f of, what was it? F of 7? Yes, f of 7. And that's going to equal 81 times 1/3 to the 7th power. And how I put that in my calculator is exactly like that. I would do it this way. Parenthesis 1 divided by 3 to the 7th power times 81. Okay? So that would be 1/27, by the way. So there you go. When it's simplified all out, it simplifies to 1/27. If you got this big old long decimal, just do 1 divided by 27 and it should be the same decimal. Okay? And that's it, you guys. You're going to be doing some problems just like this, just like we did with arithmetic, where you have to find the recursive, explicit, and find one of the terms, some term somewhere. Okay, so if you have any questions, please ask your instructor, or there are going to be some ask your math teacher that you have this year. They'll be willing to help you, and I will have some extra help videos in the online resource section of in Canvas. Thanks, guys. I will talk to you soon. Bye.